Hi everyone, it's Dawn. In today's video, we're going to talk about oyster shells. Decoupaging oyster shells can be a little bit tricky because of the shape of them, but it is very doable and they're really very pretty. I enjoy doing oyster shells. They can be, like I said, a little bit more tedious, but they come out beautiful. So there's several different types of oyster shells. You can get them where they're very deeply cupped, like this, very concave. If you have an oyster shell that is very concave, don't discard it. I'll show you what else you can do with it, because sometimes something this deep can be very, very difficult to put an image in. So that is that shape. Then you have your 3 to 5 inch oyster shells, which are concave, just like this one, but it's not as deep. These are, good for images. Then you have your flat oyster shells. I love doing these. They look great when you decoupage them. I also have been adding a magnet to the back of them. They make great magnets. Just make sure you get the strong magnets. But they can sit in a stand to display, whereas the ones with the concave, the cups, these can be used to display in stands, or they can be used as like trinket dishes. The flat ones, again, you can put a magnet on it. You can stick it in a stand, used for display. You can hang something on them to hang off of something. And then we have these. These are 1 to 2 inch oyster shells. These are really cute for keychains. Use them for Christmas ornaments. You can also get the ones that are pre-drilled for the ornaments, or if you want to use them for keychains or some kind of hanging ornament. I particularly don't bother with the ones that are drilled, pre-drilled, or to drill them myself. I just use jewelry bales. I did make a video on how to turn shells into keychains without doing holes and using jewelry bales. So that's what I do with these. So those are your different types of oyster shells. And so now I'm going to show you what I've done with the oyster shells. So here was one that was extremely concave, very deep. No way I can put an image in there. So I decided to leave it natural and just put resin on the inside and just gild the edges in gold and add an embellishment. This looks great on a stand. I'm going to do this backwards here so I don't know. It can be put on one of these stands and just display like this. It can display like this. It could be used as a trinket dish, so it's got a couple of different purposes. But don't discard these, because you can really bring out the beauty of them just by adding some resin. There is no paint. I did not paint the inside of that at all. That is the natural shell. And just by adding resin, it brings out the natural beauty of it. Then here is a regular concave shell, oyster shell, that I was able to get an image in. Again, it is concave, but not so concave that you can't apply an image. Then we have the flat oyster shell. These are great. I love making these. I did add a magnet to the back. It hangs on the refrigerator or any magnetic surface with no problem at all. These, I don't know how to say the name of them, but they start with an N. They're the real strong magnets. I got them on Amazon, but they carry, hold a lot of weight. And this I put on my refrigerator for a couple of days to see how it went, and it held up there with no problem, and it looked really cute. So that's the flat oyster shell. And then here is the smaller oyster shell that I made into a keychain. And again, I attached it with a bail. No holes, but that was the little oyster shell, and I also use them to make Christmas ornaments. So that's what you can do with your oyster shells. Oh, I have one other one. This one was too narrow. I didn't like the way any of the images went into it. So what I did was I made it to be as a trinket dish, but I attached it to another shell. I painted it with silver metallic paint, you know, lined it with some beads, put an embellishment on it, and this shell, you know, acts as a little stand for it. And you can put your jewelry in there, you can put some change in there, you can put a tea light in there, but that's what I did with this one. So again, the oyster shells that you feel like you can't put an image on, do something like this. These are really, really cute. Okay, so the supplies you're gonna need to decoupage your oyster shell is you're gonna need your oyster shell. This is the oyster shell I've chose to use. It looks flat, but it's not. It is not one of the flat oyster shells. It does have a cup to it, a little bit concave. It is not flat. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna paint it. I do 2 coats of white paint. So you're gonna paint it white. I've already done that for the sake of the video. You're gonna need your image. This is the image that I choose to use today, but I'm gonna show you. So in Penny's albums tab, you can find all of her images, and she has images that do fit the oyster shells. So I've already used this. But as you can see, they are made for the oyster shells. Now, they are made for them, but you still have to manipulate and get it to fit in. But she's got an album specifically, sheets of images specifically for about 4-inch oyster shells. You can also get them into a 3-inch oyster shell. But yes, so she does have, and I believe, well, I know, just recently, this past week, she came out with some more images that are for oyster shells. So these are specifically for the oyster shells, although you can use any image you can get to fit into an oyster shell. It just takes a little bit of manipulation. So you're gonna need your shell, you're gonna need your image, you're gonna need some paintbrushes, you're gonna need some white chalk paint, you're gonna need some Mod Podge, you're gonna need your UV resin, you're gonna need some gloves, a sander. You can use, I use this little finger sander. You can use a nail file. You can use sandpaper. You're gonna need some type of embellishment. That's what I'm choosing to put on my shell today. You're going to need chrome markers. I've got these off of Amazon. These are the Let's Resin chrome markers. These are fantastic. I don't even use gold or silver paint anymore. You can, but these are so good, and the color is magnificent. I'm going to choose to use gold today, which I'm going to open because this is a new one. I'm going to open it now. Your sander. You're going to need a UV light, glue gun, a lighter, which I'll explain what this is for later, and some plastic wrap. So those are the products, the supplies that you're going to need. And so now let's get to it. Now I'm doing this in real time, and anything can happen. Now, you know, sometimes the oyster shells do not cooperate, but like I said, they're a little bit more tedious, but they are doable. So after you paint your oyster shell with your white chalk paint, you can also use white acrylic paint. I choose to use chalk paint, and I do 2 coats usually. Now this image is pretty much going to cover the whole shell, but even so, I still do it with white paint. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take I've ripped my piece of plastic. I'm gonna take my Mod Podge, and I'm going to paint a coat of the Mod Podge on my oyster shell. Now, if you're using napkins, I mean, you don't want to overuse the Mod Podge. Too much Mod Podge is going to make it slip and slide all around, and it's just not, it doesn't work well when it's too saturated. If you're using napkins, you use a very thin coat of this, but with the rice paper, it can withstand a little bit thicker Mod Podge. Now, because of the way the oyster shell is shaped, it's got all these, you know, grooves and crevices. Make sure that you get in all of them and go all the way to the edge, because if you don't go all the way to the edge, you know, you'll find that the image does not seal on the edge, and then you have to go back and re-glue it. It's not a big deal, but if you, I mean, I go right over the edge. Okay, so let me move that aside. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply my image. What you can do to relax the fibers on the image a little bit, you can give it a couple of little light squirts of just plain water. Don't overdo it with the water. If this has too much water on it, it will not adhere. It will not stick. So be very sparingly with your water. So I'm just going to give it a little spritz. Okay, now I'm choosing to put my, now you can use the shell this way with the pointy side up. You can choose to use it this way. I'm going to use it this way today. Okay, so I'm going to take my image. I'm just going to turn it around so I can place it first. Okay, I'm going to get my image and I'm going to place it where I want it. Now, I will tell you, when you're doing oyster shells, you're probably going to get some wrinkles. It's just not preventable because of the shape, and it's just impossible to get it perfect. Don't make yourself crazy. It's not, after you apply your resin or your top coat, it's just all going to kind of melt in together. You're not even going to notice it. But what you're going to do is you're going to lay your image onto the shell. And what you need to do is you need to press down. Make sure you get it in all the grooves, because it will form air bubbles and then it's a big mess. So when you place your image in, just make sure you press it into, like this shell here has some dips. All right, and I'm pressing all around. Now I'm gonna take my plastic wrap. Now you can choose to use it this way. You can ball it up, and then you're gonna go in and you're going to smooth out over all the areas. If you see any wrinkles, if you look close, you can see a couple of wrinkles. I don't know if you're getting that, but just go over it. And I'm just going to go from the center out. I'm gonna make sure that it is pressed down all the way to the edge. And actually, if I've got overlapping paper, I go in and I bend it over the edge from the center to the edge. And I do that over the edge so that I can be sure that it's not going to lift. And then we're going to go in afterwards and we're going to file this excess paper off. So no worries. Okay, so now again, I don't know how focused I can get this. There are a few wrinkles right here. Again, take your plastic wrap and just kind of rub on it. If you were to do this with a napkin, it would completely tear. Rice paper is extremely forgiving. And I'm just gonna keep rubbing. Okay, now I'm happy with the way it's adhered. And like I said, I've gone over, okay, see, it didn't catch on that edge. So what I'm gonna do is take a little bit more of the Mod Podge. I mean, it's not a big deal, but, and I'm gonna just do that. And Press it against the side. I'm going to check all my sides. I got a little bit more here. A little bit there. Okay. Here. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit more Mod Podge and I'm going to go along the edges where the edge meets the paper. Even if the paper is overlapping, I'm going to go around and I'm going to hit it with the Mod Podge. I'm going to get, even though the paper's overlapping, I'm going to hit it where the edge of the shell is. Okay, I'm going to go all around. Now you can go over the whole image if you want. I really don't. I go back in, you know, with the top coat of resin. Even if you do use resin, you can go over the whole image with the Mod Podge, but I don't see the need to, not for me. I don't care to. Okay, so now we've got our shell. It's got the image adhered to it. Okay, now what you would do is kind of let it dry some, but for the sake of the video, it's dry enough for me. So what we're going to do now is where this excess paper is, we're going to take our sander and we're going to go in a downward motion and we're going to sand along the edge. And then what happens is it just rips it right off. Okay, so downward. Now, if you've got a whole bunch of paper hanging off, you can always kind of cut some of that. And you just want to go ahead and see, it basically cuts the paper. Downward motion. Don't go back and forth because then you're going to lift the image from the shell. And you're going to go all the way around your shell. Okay. Until you get all the excess paper off. Okay. All right. Okay, so all my excess paper is off. My image is secure on the shell. Now, I usually go ahead and embellish my shell before I resin, because whatever embellishment that I put on, I then squeeze a little bit of resin around it to secure it even more. So I hot glue it where I want it to be. Now, the other thing I do is on the oyster shells, I like to add some of the chrome, you know, the gilding on this part. So I'm choosing to go with gold on this. So what I'm going to do is before I put the embellishment on this piece, I'm going to go in and it's a brand new one. So there we go. So when you first get these, you know, you shake it, you press the point down until you see the paint coming out, and there we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some gold on this part. Now be careful not to go down on near the image. Now a lot of people ask, do you do the gilding, you know, adding the gold, silver, whatever color you're using, before or after you resin? After you resin, it should be done, because what happens, and maybe I can show you. So if you choose to do the gilding before the resin, what's going to happen is it's going to bleed into the image. It did a little bit. I don't know if you can see it or not. Once the resin is on, then it won't bleed into your paper won't soak it up because the resin is protecting it. So always do the gilding, trimming the edges after the resin. Okay, so now I've done that part. Now what I'm going to do is, like I said, I'm choosing to use this embellishment. So I'm going to take my glue gun and I'm just going to put a dollop of glue right there. And then I'm going to add my embellishment. Okay, so that's all embellished. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is add the resin. Okay, so I'm gonna put my gloves on. I do use a mask. I know every time I do these videos, I don't have a mask on. For the sake of the video, I'd sound like I was muffled and you wouldn't be able to hear what I was saying. So, put my gloves on. I'm gonna get my UV resin. Grab my light. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the resin and I'm going to add it a little bit up and around where the embellishment is, because this resin is better than any glue you use and it's going to help secure the embellishment. And then I'm just going to go a little bit around with the UV resin. You don't need too much. And then I'm going to go in and just spread the resin with my gloved finger. Just gently smooth it through. Make sure you get into all the dips. If you have to add a little more, and you don't need a lot. Do not overdo it or else it will never cure. It's meant to be done in thin layers. Okay, now it's all resined. Looks like, actually don't look like I have any bubbles at all. But then what you do is, if you have any bubbles, you take a lighter. Okay, this is not gonna work with my gloves on. Take a lighter and you just go over the surface of the shell, and any bubbles that have formed will pop. You can actually see them pop. Okay, and I just, all right. Now I didn't, like I said, I did not notice that I had any bubbles, but this is also a fairly new bottle and there's less air in the bottle. So I didn't see any bubbles. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this, I usually go about 3 minutes. I live in Florida, it's pretty humid here, even though we have the air conditioner on. It just seems to work well for me for 3 minutes. I'm gonna put it under the light for 3 minutes. You can use a second coat if you'd like. Sometimes using a second coat will assure you that you've gotten all the spots. Sometimes if you see any imperfections or bubbles, the second coat will take care of that. But for the most part, I only use one coat. You don't really need two. If you take it out of the light and it still feels sticky, put it back under the light for a little longer. Like I said, it all depends on your humidity, how thick you laid the resin. So I'll just wait a few more minutes. For the sake of the video, I'll show you what the last step is. I don't want to drag this out anymore. But everything that I've used here, I have gotten from my local craft store or from Amazon. I get all my shells from Amazon. I've had very good luck with them. All my embellishments I get from Amazon. My images I get from Penny right here at Decoupage Digital Design. She's got on her main Facebook page, scroll over and you will find an albums tab. Sorry, you find an albums tab and click on that, and she's got tons and tons of images. In fact, we'll be doing another video shortly of her rice papers, and I will tell you what those rice papers, the size and the different sheets and what they fit and what they're good for. So we will take care of that in another video. Yeah, but check out her albums. She has some great images. They're beautiful. Okay, so obviously that was not 3 minutes, and it is still a little tacky. It's not quite ready, but I want to show you what the next step is. So our last and final step, okay, is now we're going to gild the edges, and you can use metallic paints. I was using this Deco Art Metallic Silver and this Folk Art Treasure Gold. I've used it in the past. I don't really use it to gild anymore. I've been using these chrome markers because they're fabulous. I won't use anything else anymore. So what you're gonna do is you're just gonna go along the edge. Now, this is depending, you can make it as thin as you want, as thick as you want around the edge. It's entirely up to you. This gold really stands out. This pack comes with gold, silver, and this other color, I don't know if it's a bronze or what it is, but it kind of looks like an antique gold. It's actually very nice. But you just go around the edges like so. And with these, I mean, with paint, you can tend to, you know, go inward and it gets kind of sloppy. These markers, you just slide them along the edge. Oops. One thing is they do wipe off if you get them right away. But they just slide along the edge. Very, very easy. And like I said, you can make this along the edge as thick as you want or as thin as you want. There's no right or wrong way. Everybody has their own techniques. Everybody has their own designs and what they like. Some people don't really like a lot of embellishments. They like them simple. I go with whatever the image is. If it's a, you know, some images don't need any extra embellishing. Some images just stand alone. They're gorgeous. So make it your own. Do what you want. Like I said, there is no right or wrong. Just have fun with it. I mean, be creative and just do, you know, whatever your heart desires. I mean, it's a fun project. It's supposed to be relaxing, not stressful. Sometimes I stress out about how am I going to decorate it, and I put too much thought into it sometimes, when just go with it, whatever you're feeling, you know. So, but there we go. It's all finished. So again, I hope this video helped. Oyster shells, give it a try. They look so pretty when they're done. They take a little more time than a regular, you know, scallop shell, but you will love the outcome. And yeah, decorate it and make it your own. Okay, thanks for watching. Any questions, put them in the comments. You can DM me. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Happy decoupaging.